Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm Christina Dimitrievsky, and this is Aleks Trpkovska.
Hi, everyone.
We are here for another Professional Foundations with Aleks. Today, we're going to be focusing on budgeting and personal finances. So
it's a fun topic.
It's a very fun topic. I need some help. People have reached out to me saying that they need some help. So I'm sure this will be very beneficial for everyone. As you can tell by this reflection, we have a gorgeous view of the Washington Monument right now. We are in DC. Let me just show you guys this really quick. Wait, is it going to focus? Oh, it's not going to focus.
That's okay.
That's
it's
fine.
The Lincoln Memorial and
It's
the
there.
Washington National Monument.
Yes, so
we'll get to enjoy it for all of you guys. You
don't
get to enjoy us.
But here we are. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a couple of important aspects of, I guess, budgeting and personal finance. So Aleks, I don't know if you want to go over just a couple of things that we're going to be covering.
Yeah, happy to. And thanks to everybody that's joining. Always remember to put in your questions, because the purpose of these half-an-hour power sessions is really not for me to lecture. It's for us to do like a Q&A, because there's a lot of information out there, and it's not the lack of information, lack of books and other stuff that's out there. It's more about how do you apply it to yourself, and that's kind of like how I work with my clients. But Christina, I know Generation M is doing a ton of events, so yes. I'm just hoping maybe you can give a plug for them.
Thank you so much for the reminder. So Generation M is doing huge things right now. I'm so proud of the team that we have put together. We have a couple of events coming up. So this Sunday, May 12th, so tomorrow, if you're in the Toronto area, definitely stop by St. Clement of Ohrid Macedonian Orthodox Church. We're going to be doing one final birthright info session over there in Hall A. So definitely stop by if you're around. We only have 3 spots out of 15 left for this year's birthright session. So it's really exciting. So definitely stop by. And then we have one more event. If you're in Australia, in the Melbourne area, we have a dinner at a restaurant. I believe it's called Lele. It's a very new restaurant. It's going to be a night of Macedonian food and music with the Generation M Melbourne team. So I'll provide the links later on. And yeah,
in the group.
The group. And yeah, let's get started.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just jump in, and I know we have a couple of people that are watching us live. Guys, I'm seriously encouraging you, ask any question that you want, because we do have a couple of agenda items. We wanted to talk about or touch on finance basics, setting financial sort of goals. One of them was around how do you save money at the same time as paying bills. So save money for example, for a house purchase or a down payment. That was one question that we got in advance. We also just talked about like best practices for financial decisions. So we can touch on that. These are the lists that we had in our advertisement. So it's, another topic was how to review and reduce your debt. I think that is the biggest issue for the new generation, especially because people are graduating with a lot of student loan debt. And a lot of times it follows people through the rest of their life instead of paying it off really quickly, and they're going to school for free. So there's definitely a lot to talk about there. And like we said, we have, half an hour? So yes. 25 more minutes to talk on this topic. So you guys pose any questions that you want. I'll dive into the first one, and then happy to jump into the question that we got about the goals. Sure. So I would say our grandparents actually knew a lot more about finances than we do now with our spreadsheets and Mint and other tools that you may have to track your expenses. I think our grandmas in particular a lot of times manage the finances in a house, right? So they were given a very limited budget, and they had to stretch it a long time. And by the way, I grew up in Macedonia, so I am constantly impressed with how people were able to live off of such low either pensions, and currently still, or paychecks per month. So they were really able to plan to use things that they have and to help each other. So I'm saying that because a lot of things that we grew up around are really healthy, like budgeting habits. But sometimes when we came to the US with this whole concept of consumerism and other stuff, we may have left some of those values behind. So let's talk about how does money work, right? So money comes in by working for it or getting some kind of royalty or whatever the situation may be. But generally, it's people trading their time for a paycheck. So you get income and then you have spending. So the way in which you spend your money is generally what needs budgeting. So people hate the word budget because they feel like it's constraining, kind of like saying diet. But the thing is, budget and diet only say that there's some kind of a plan, honestly. It doesn't mean that it's a constraining plan. So you can be on an all-cake diet. It's still a diet. It's just whatever you eat. So all of us in reality spend our money in many different ways. And it's all a matter of your priorities. So if you look where your money is going, chances are it's going to show where your priorities lie. There is a couple of fixed expenses that a lot of us have. So for example, housing is a fixed expense. You either have rent or you have a mortgage payment for a loan. And if you're lucky, you don't have a payment because you paid off your house. So congrats to you. And maybe you're not watching this Facebook Live for that particular reason.
You have it figured out.
You have everything figured out. But if you have, for example, car insurance, house insurance, life insurance, and anybody that has kids should have term insurance to make sure that they would be provided for, at least until they're adults and they can work for themselves. So those policies are generally bought for a 6-month period or a whole year, and then you can divide them up. So for example, if your insurance policy costs, I'm going to just use a big number, $1,000 per year, then, or let's say $1,200, then it's $100 per month that you should be budgeting.
Gotcha.
You may pay it once per year, but each month you should be budgeting for that, because at the end of the year, when the bill comes in, you need to have money to pay it, and it's probably not going to come from one paycheck, because otherwise you're not going to be able to eat that month. Or a lot of people would charge it on a credit card, and that's how the debt starts. So as far as fixed expenses, you do have housing, you do have insurance, you have issues like childcare. So I have 2 kids. Daycare and after school care, for example, are topics for me that I need to budget for. And frankly, that's in the DC area, that's expensive. It's kind of like a mortgage payment, but that's okay. And it's only temporary. And of course, we want our kids to be well taken care of while we're at work. So that's as far as fixed expenses. Then you have all of these variable expenses. So clothing, for example, and food and entertainment and other stuff. They could be variable. And the thing is, one month you may spend your clothing budget, and another month you may not spend it. But for purposes of budgeting and having a plan, you actually set a number for each of them. So for example, we can say that each month my budget for clothing may be $200. And so when it was Annabella's birthday, I bought her a lot of girl princess dresses and other stuff. So I blew through that. But the following month, I really didn't have a ton of expenses. So it's like you try to budget and to make it work. And then you also have, for example, food. So I have a family of 3, and what I do is I kind of my food budget is $500 for the month.
Oh, wow.
And I would say generally $50 per week for an adult would be good. So if it's one single adult, $200, they could make it work. Now that does not involve dining out and other stuff. So other people's budgets may be huge. I don't want to say you should starve, but the thing is, we eat pretty healthy, and my kids pack a lunch. My son packs a lunch to go to school, or I pack it for him.
Gotcha.
He's just in kindergarten. But we eat healthy, and you can do things on a pretty solid number. But I'll tell you this, before I was budgeting, I would spend close to $1,000 on food. And some of it is
Wow.
Well, do you have coffees, dining out? Do you just grab a quick bite to eat? Unless you're monitoring your spending and you have a specific number, then you may not actually pay attention to it. So I sort of said what some of those spending categories are, but what I think the cool way to think about a budget is this. you kind of design what your life should be like and what your days should be like. So for example, if you want to get up and have a cup of tea, whether it's at home or out, whatever the situation may be, you want to go work out, you want to make yourself a smoothie, then you go to work, whatever your mode of transportation is, because you also got to budget transportation. You think about all of the costs that you may incur in order to have that kind of like a dream life. And then you figure out what are the things that are really a priority and what are the things that you need to cut. And so there's a ton of budgeting worksheets, and I'm happy to share mine because I had to customize, because nobody's like one and done worksheet is final for you. You may, for example, have a lot of blank fields. So for those of you guys that don't have kids, you may not have like a daycare expense like I do as a line item, but you may be able to use your money in a different way. However, the categories would all be listed out as far as how you spend. So we talked about spending, but another factor to spending is actually, and if you don't think of it this way, it's saving. So they call it like pay yourself first, but in that concept, you're actually paying somebody, so you're spending the money.
Yeah.
So generally people recommend that you pay yourself 5 to 10% before you touch your paycheck. And you do that as an automatic debit so that you don't see the money. Because if you see the money, you may spend the money.
Exactly.
If you just let it compile. And I think this is one area where I can just go to perhaps like the concept of compounding interest, and the fact that if you set aside $100, and for example, I'm just going to make up a number, if your interest rate for the month is 10%, then you just made $10 on $100. Next month, you're going to make 10% on $110. So you're going to make $11. Mm-hmm. So your total just keeps on growing.
Amazing.
And you can't replace that. So what math has shown, and I think if you guys Google it, I have examples of this, but like I said, the purpose of this is to answer questions. So hopefully we can transition to that in a couple of minutes. You can actually Google the impact of compound interest if you start saving for retirement in your 20s, even if it's just $1,000 per year that you put away in your 20s, it's going to grow substantially higher than if you start, for example, at 35 and add a lot more money in. You're never going to catch up. You're just never going to catch up to the person that added a lot less money initially. For those of you that love numbers, I would say look up Dave Ramsey, and I'll go through actually his 7 baby steps. But there's a lot of examples out there. If you look up compounded interest and the difference if you start in the 20s versus 30s, you're going to see how the math works, and it's truly powerful. So you can save even for 10 years in your 20s, or you can save the rest of your life and not catch up. So for those of you that were catching it up early this morning and this afternoon, like if you're young, please, and this is of course Generation M, right? So it's everybody's young in this group, start saving, but it's never too late to save. So even if, my grandparents are both passed, on both sides, they have passed on, but it's never too late to start saving and to start investing. Don't make it complicated. This is not about like how, I don't know, the most complex investment vehicle gets you a lot of money. Like it's not about that. It's just, even if you invest 3 or 401k at work and you have a couple of options, depending on your risk, you can decide what those are. And if you don't know, honestly, just like anything else, you can inform yourself about it. So these things are actually not very complicated, but they can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I feel like just because it is overwhelming, it feels like it's so much more
than
I guess than it actually is.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like, right, so I have a high deductible medical plan, and that's one of the things to budget for, right? And it may come directly from your paycheck, but I put money away for health expenses in a health savings account. So that's a tax protected account where I can put as much as my annual deductible for a family into it. Or like if you're a single person, there's a different limit. So I think the number for next year is going to be like $7,000 that I can put away from my paychecks over a year, and it stays into that account. So for a couple of years, that money was just sitting interest-free. But the thing is, this account is very much like a retirement account. So if you actually invest that money into specific stocks, you get return on it. So while for 3 years, this was sitting at like 0% interest. So basically it was just like a checking account that I can just charge anytime I go to the doctor's. I invested it about 3 months ago following Dave Ramsey's like 3 buckets. He has 3 different plans, and he tells you like whether it's small companies that are very aggressive in growth, or it's a global fund or other stuff. Again, it doesn't have to be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, if you don't understand it, don't invest in something. So I did that, and I checked it yesterday just in preparation. So it's been growing at 16%. 16%. Like,
oh, wow.
What? Like,
incredible.
And this is only money for health expenses, right? So God forbid, this is like a worst case scenario that you will need this money, and it's money that's sitting in a bank, right, somewhere. Now, I want to just give people the idea. The banks don't just sit on the money. Like, they would never keep like the safe with the money full and like get another safe and fill it up. They invest the money because they want their money to make money for them. So that's the concept, right? And I think we need to do that for ourselves. So the biggie, right? The big thing in all of this is if you have an income and you're spending a lot more than you're making, you're obviously going to go into debt. There's like, it's a math equation, right? You earn $100, you can't spend $500 and then hope that one day you're going to catch up. It may take you a lot longer to catch up because there's interest on that debt, no matter where it comes from. If it's a credit card and you have, 20% interest, that's a lot. So if you see, like on your
scary.
On your credit card statements have to give you a number. So they will tell you, like, if you pay your minimum, so let's say $25 on a $500 bill, it's going to take you 7 years to pay it off. Like, are you kidding me? 7 years to pay off that bill that probably just took like 1 month to charge up. So make sure that you understand how you use your money and who gets a lot of your money. Because I would not want to give all that money to my credit card company. I want that money to go to my kids. I'd rather invest in their college savings rather than a credit card company building a new building or whatever it is that they will do.
For sure. Now, I have a question. So this was actually sent in to us earlier. Someone was asking for, I guess, advice on how to start saving for a house deposit while studying and having student fees and loans.
Yeah.
Now, is there like a specific kind of way that you should be breaking down, I guess, any income that you have, like percentage-wise? How should that work?
I think that everybody can, you can look up percentage-wise, like expenses and stuff like that. How much should savings be? How much should retirement be, etc. I think that anytime when you're dealing with debt, you need somebody, you need to follow somebody's advice that's talking about like crushing that debt. So I'm going to talk about the Dave Ramsey plan. And he is an interesting radio personality. He can be a little abrasive. I'm very soft and like very motherly in my approach. That's the feedback that I get from people. He's not that way. He would yell at people for being stupid. So, but that's his brand. And at the same time, a lot of times people that get into debt, they need somebody that's going to be honest with them and kind of be like, get it together. He tells people like, you're not a child. Like, you can tell yourself, adults can tell the difference between no and not yet. Right? So I really want that latest iPhone. Do you have the money to pay for it? No. Okay. Do you want to save up for it? So if you really want the phone, then the answer really is like, you can have the phone, just not yet. You can have it when you save up for it. So do you need to set aside like $5 each month, whatever it is? Like, you may just come up with a number to make it work, but you can have everything you want, just not as instantaneous as like without budgeting and planning.
I feel like that also gives you, it kind of tests you in a way, because it's like, okay, well, do I just really want this in the moment? Or, if I just kind of leave it off to the side for a bit, will I still want it later on as badly?
Yeah, the way I think as far as like when you're making a financial decision in anything, including buying a shirt, right? It's like needs versus wants. And needs are generally what you budget for, and they're pretty much like the hard numbers. Like you need to have money for gas, for car insurance, for other stuff. Like that's a need, especially if you need to get to work. But a want is, I don't know, my kids may need like a third Lego set this month. I may get creative with that one. But needs versus wants. And I think that's the differentiation between like an adult and a child, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard because a lot of us actually like have to learn that lesson as adults. And it's tough because we've been enabled for a while. But to your friends, whoever submitted the question in Generation M, so Dave Ramsey's method is first, you build up an emergency fund. So you have an emergency fund of about $1,000. That's his baby step one, and there's 7. Second is you pay off debt entirely. So if you have student debt, you focus on paying it off. And then eventually, like after that step, there's different steps to save money for a down payment on a house, or you like max the money that you can put into retirement. The point of this is, if you're, I'm going to take a step back. So, by the way, guys, Dave Ramsey's not paying me to say any of this. And I have used his method, and I also coordinated a class. It's called Financial Peace University. The class itself, if you just want to do it online, costs about $120 maybe. But it's a really cool class, and a lot of churches actually organize it. So I'm not sure if any Macedonian church has facilitated this, but I know local churches in the DC area that do. And it's encouraged, for example, for people that are couples or families to do it together so that everybody is aligned and they work towards a common goal. So what I was saying is, after you have that emergency fund, because things come up, and when people reach for their credit cards is when they don't have an emergency fund. So I actually broke a tooth and in September, and it was quite expensive to fix it. And I had the money that I could just, I could pay it off of my HSA, for example, health savings account, and not think twice about it. It was no stress, no drama, just get it done. And if we had that conversation maybe 3 or 4 years ago, or definitely in my 20s, that would not have been my situation. So I'm hoping to prepare you guys based on my experiences. So yes, you can save up for a house, and you can definitely have a healthy deposit to do that. But whenever you buy a big purchase like that, it should be a blessing to you. It should not be a curse. Like, it should not be something where you can't sleep at night because you're wondering if you can make ends meet. And Dave Ramsey's rule on this one is, if you have a mortgage on a 15-year fixed, so mortgages can be 30 or 15-year in general. There's different versions as well, but most standard mortgages are either a 30-year mortgage or a 15-year mortgage. And the interest rate on a 15-year mortgage is actually less than on a 30-year because the bank has to take a lower risk on you. On me, I have a 15-year mortgage. So it should be like less than a quarter of your paycheck. So let's say that your paycheck is $5,000 per month, then it should be less than like $1,250 your mortgage payment. If it's a lot more than that, then you're kind of house poor, because you're going to be paying the utility bills, food, like everything else. Like, let's say you have childcare as well.
Yeah.
By the end of the month, you're going to be strapped for money. So you don't want to be house poor. You really want that house to be a blessing when you do get it, and it's a big purchase. So a lot of people, like, he has a radio show as well, and when a lot of people call in, they're like, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting married, and I want to buy a house." And it's kind of like, well, wait until you get married so you guys can make a joint decision on that. Yeah. I feel like we have gone through a couple of the topics. I'm just going to collect some of these cards to make sure that we answer.
I'm learning a lot here. Awesome.
These are big topics, by the way, which is why I think I like answering specific questions, because these are huge topics.
For sure.
And there is a ton of information out there, which is why I think it's overwhelming. So you should probably pick one method and stick with it and make sure that you follow it. But I think the number one factor that probably differentiates people that are in debt and people that are not just debt-free, but thriving and can take annual vacations and can do other stuff that they really want to do.
Yeah.
The deciding factor there is budgeting. It's knowing where your money is going. If you don't know where your money is going, you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
In simple terms.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So
let me see. Savings for a rainy day. So, okay, so let's talk about that. So this is the emergency fund concept. You need to have emergency fund. That's the rainy day concept. It's going to rain. The question, or Murphy's Law. Exactly. So Murphy's Law, right? Murphy's going to come. And chances are, actually, when you don't have an emergency fund, that you're going to have a lot more accidents. Like, let's say you have a tire blowout, and then the next thing happens, and then like two other things. So then really quickly you can get set behind. But if you have the emergency fund to pay for it, it puts you in a good position. So what, again, Dave Ramsey's plan is you work like no one else so you can live like no one else later. So you may have to pick up a second job for a certain period of time, and while you're paying off debt, you work as hard as you can. So if you don't have kids, you kind of like work around the clock, but you get that out of the way and you pay it off in like a year. And then afterwards, guess what? You can keep your entire income to yourself. Like, imagine if I paid off my house, and that would be like 25% of my paycheck that I can keep for me, for investing, for family vacations. And then if I paid off, so for example, insurance and some other stuff, those are each year kind of expenses. You don't really pay them off. Food as well. But if I own everything outright, my cars, my only incremental expense would be gas and insurance. Like that would be huge in terms of the savings that I can do and my quality of life. If my kids would want to do anything, like we could just do it on an instant. Like, do I feel like it? What the big thing that I didn't talk about actually is about giving. So, Dave Ramsey does talk about this a lot. He's very, I don't know if he's the evangelical Christian. I don't know about that, but, the concept of giving. So for a lot of Christians, the concept of tithing and giving 10% to like a local church that they go to or something like that is a big thing. But even if you don't do that and you want to give to a charity, I think for me, the concept of being debt-free means it's not just about like being able to give something to like a homeless person down the street or whatever, but let's say that I'm able to pay like a single mom utility bill for a year. Like, I would love to do that and just like bless a person in that way, like to be able to give something that's so important to somebody else. And for me, it may not make a dent. Yeah. Like, that's huge. And when you're living with debt, you can't really like do that for yourself. You may not be able to take a vacation yourself, let alone help somebody else. So I think it's this concept of you got to be able to first help yourself, build yourself up, and then be giving in the process, and just give a lot more. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
You have to kind of help yourself.
Yes.
Unfortunately. Fortunately, but anyway,
it's the airplane model of like you have to put your mask on yourself first in order to help even your kids, because if they start panicking and stuff, they'll take you down. So you always have to make sure that you are in a good place so you can help other people if that's what you want to do. And if not, and what matters to you is to have a Tesla or a Lamborghini, then you start saving up for that. But I'm not good in judge. If you want to do that, you do that.
Oh, amazing. Well, I think we've covered everything.
We covered a lot of topics in a very brief way. I know we have people watching. I don't know if you can give us thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't know what your options are as far as like loving this, or just any question, or if it's one takeaway that you had from this. We'd love to just get some interaction from people. Pressure.
Oh,
comes through. So, and maybe Christina, for you, like, what's the one thing that you are going to take away from everything that we talked about? Ooh. And if you want to, you can talk about 3 things, but just the one thing is
so just okay, I'll start with one, and if I get into the second and third things, sure.
Yeah.
So I definitely like the idea of putting away whatever it was, 25%, I think you said, of my paycheck towards savings. Or
mortgage,
or
like, or
mortgage,
your
there we
mortgage
go.
should not be more than 25%. So
Mortgage.
if you don't have any housing expenses right now, like if you were to live at home, that would be a huge way to start up your savings for a house or for anything else. Yeah.
So definitely that.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify.
Thank you. So yeah, definitely things like that, especially because maybe I want to like start looking for a house to invest in for the future. So I definitely want to know more or less what I should be looking at mortgage wise and all that. So thank you so much for that. Saving on a monthly basis. That's
making that automatic.
Yes, making that automatic.
I think that's the part where you had an aha moment.
I
did. The money.
I'm the worst. So if I see the money there, I'm like, great, I'm good. I can spend it if I need to. And sometimes
all of us are like that.
I mean, listen, sometimes you see something you like, you don't like. I usually give myself like a 24-hour period of, all right, do I really, really need this? Am I still thinking of it? Like, will I wear it? Let's say if it's a piece of clothing. Will I wear it, for years? Is it something that's going to stay in style? Then, maybe I might, actually spend that money. But if I'm not really thinking about it, then
I sometimes think about it, but like what I do is if I don't go back, or when I go back to the store, if it's not there, it wasn't meant for me. So it happens quite a lot to me. It's not there because I don't go shopping that often. So I'm not going to make the trip if it's not worth the trip.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely
less impulsive shopping.
And for sure, just going back to the savings and the automatic, what was it? The automatic transfers?
Yeah. So if you, I'll talk very briefly on the concept of like, they're called sinking funds, because every time that, for example, you get paid, you can designate how much money of each paycheck goes towards what. So you can set up separate accounts, or you can keep it all in one place, but just know what the money is designated for. So for example, out of each paycheck, I put about $500 towards all kinds of like insurances. So car insurance, house insurance, life insurance, and some of my utilities, like the housing association that gets paid quarterly. So I just want to make sure that I have enough money into that place, and I just move it to one savings account where it's piling up, but I will not touch it because it's only meant for those bills. I can't just use it to buy something that I may want in the moment. Exactly. But to your point, sort of like about if you have money coming in, even if it's $1,000, right? And you said 10% of the money coming in, and you can do this, by the way, through your jobs as well. You can do it so you don't see the money in your checking account. You can say 10% of each paycheck is going to go to like a savings account number, and the next a fixed amount or percent is going to go to a different account. So I'll tell you what I do. I do a set number for savings, and then I do a set number for my mortgage payment, because it's through a different bank. It's a credit union. They had the best interest locally. So I just basically have it go straight to that checking account, and that's an automatic payment then to the mortgage. So I don't think about it. I don't have to do everything is automated for that part. And because I get 2 paychecks a month, I just split my mortgage payment to make sure that by the time the next bill comes, there's enough funds there. And then the rest of it goes into my checking account, and I do with it, like I pay all the bills with it. But my first part, that's for savings, that's huge. And I actually have used that to very much accelerate any debt repayment that I have. So I am student loan free. I have my mortgage, but I don't have any credit card debt right now. I do have personal loan debt. So I'm working through that on a very accelerated plan. And honestly, my goal is to be debt free this year, and I'm pretty sure I can do it. But when you set a goal and you're focused, you can very much do that. So sinking funds are a really good thing. To the person that had asked the question, if they don't have any other bills, they can set if they've paid off everything, they can basically say that, I don't know, 20%, whatever they want to from every single paycheck, instead of them spending it frivolously. It goes towards saving for a house, and they just focus on that. And that's a sinking fund where they don't see the money
Gotcha.
to touch it. Yeah, so
sure.
We've touched on a lot of topics. Thanks for everybody that joined. I mean, I know people have been a little quiet, but if you do have questions, you can always put them in the comments and we'll follow up.
Yeah, and so I think we're gonna get back to doing these on a monthly basis.
I was sick last month. Apologies for everybody that we had to reschedule this.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, or specifically any topics that you want us to cover, anything that Aleks can, really talk about. By the way, I don't know if we've mentioned that she's the author of The Pain-Free Path to College. This is her book.
Or as my son has told a neighbor, that's my mommy on the cover. Like, it's my mommy's book. They're awesome.
They're great.
Yeah.
We're here. If you have any questions for us, any topics you want us to cover, let us know. Message me, Kristina Dimitrievsky, message Aleks Trpkovska.
Will tag me so you guys can.
I'll tag her. Everything will be great. One last shameless plug for Generation M events coming up. This Sunday, aka tomorrow, at St. Clement of Oakfield in Toronto, we're doing a birthright info session. Again, we have 3 out of 15 spots left. So definitely check that out for the summer of a lifetime. You're going to make 15 or 14, I don't know, 14 best friends. So who doesn't want that?
For life.
For life. So definitely check that out. Also, our Melbourne event, Melbourne, Australia, we're doing a Gen M dinner at Lele. It's a restaurant in Melbourne. So I think we're done.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.